Acknowledgement. The video will use a clickbait, sensationalist, or controversial title because you're not going to look up a level-headed request for information. So that's what's needed in order for you to find the information. Next, practical information first. The problem that's being discussed in this video has to do with Google, the corporation that runs Google ad services, and YouTube being at war with ad blockers like uBlock Origin. That's at least what we are being led to believe here. And they've decided to put out a version of their browser sometime in 2024 that will turn off forever all ad blockers. Bullshit. So let's move on. Older legacy or version 2 manifest-based extensions are being phased out June 2024. Actually not being phased out, they're just being turned off. They'll effectively be disabled June 2024 if your Google Chrome version increments past 126. And or they might do an update that will then turn it off in older versions later or not. Version 126 or older isn't affected by this as long as you turn off its ability to be updated in any way. That includes security updates. Other browsers that are based on the same code, called Chromium, has an ironic story behind it, but let's move on. They're not affected by this at all because the groups that build them are in most cases, one, not run by Google, obviously, and number two, are antagonistic towards them, so they're not going to cooperate. So all you have to do is download any other Chromium browser that works okay for you and use it instead, or just not let your computer update Chrome. I can take it one step further. That's what this video is really about, but that's the answer. Don't panic. Now, is this them trying to turn off the ad blockers? Okay, let me point out this thing. Obviously, if there's a manifest version 2, Google Chrome had a manifest version 1 installer or basis for their extensions, which means they've already destroyed a bunch of stuff that used to work. Firefox did the same thing. Internet Explorer did the same thing. Even Netscape, which is the origin story for a lot of what this is based on, disabled stuff at one point or another and required a newer version of everything you added to it to make it customized to be written a different way. Now, what is this based on? Don't watch the video after 3 minutes if you don't care. Just get the 126 version and then stop it from updating. Okay? 2, done. Your web browser is like a very small operating system. This is Computer Science 101. Subsets, or plugins, or add-ons, or extensions. They all use different words, but they all mean the same thing. Let's review. Microsoft Corporation put out Windows 3.1 and DOS 6.2.2. Windows 3.1.1 is not an operating system. It goes on top of the operating system, which means it's running within DOS. Then it would open itself up and get above DOS and be the over operating system. Within Windows, you would run a program written for Windows 3.1 using certain conventions and standards for how the program would launch, run, and run under certain restrictions to keep it compartmentalized so that the copy of Windows you were running could force shut down the program. Now, if you're not aware of it, under the hood for every operating system, including Windows 11 or 10 or whatever they're calling it this week, they promised they wouldn't change the numbers, all the way back to the Stone Age, all software is running as a string of numbers and letters on a screen somewhere you can't see in a command line or in the background without one. And all of these are based on sending commands back and forth between subroutines. Let's run a web browser under Windows 3.1. Oh, here, it's Internet Explorer 4 or 5 or 3. Let's say we're using 4. That's a specific reason for it. So we install and run that, and it acts a lot like another operating system. Because it is. If you're not aware of this, to make Windows 95's graphical user interface work, it ran a routine called Explorer. We're at the 5-minute mark. Microsoft Windows 95 was a copy of Internet Explorer being used as an operating system. Some of you are already saying this. Having a web browser be able to run a program off of your hard drive would mean it would easily run viruses. Yeah, that was the problem. Now we talk about Netscape. Netscape was programmed to be able to run Java, JavaScript, Flash, etc. over time, but it ran it by putting in add-ons and plugins to deliberately separate and compartmentalize another layer down of isolation what you were running. Netscape would still get viruses. But it didn't directly fucking run a command prompt by typing it into the address bar. Internet Explorer would. Pro tip, if you're not aware of it, if you run all the routines I've run to rip out every stitch of Internet Explorer, but leave the quote-unquote GUI operating system in at the bare bones level, Windows 95A style, you find out something funny. The operating system is literally a web browser. It identifies itself as Internet Explorer, I think it's 3, and it is able to run web pages, which means you get a web browser, but the funny thing is, when you do that, it's not able to run executables, so you suddenly end up, this is stupid, with the extremely minimized Windows 95 that we used to build for starting off of CDs. It was a virus-proof Internet Explorer. Ironic, because that's all you were running. This is how much like an operating system every web browser is. Now you might understand that installing an extension version 1 on Google Chrome, basically running a subsystem copy of the Chromium op system, might be able to act like a damn virus magnet. So at version 2, the extensions changed, everybody screamed, cried, gnashed their teeth, and now we're at 3 doing the same thing. Because they have to make some changes eventually because we're running newer hardware. Let's take advantage of the video card and sound card better. Let's make it to where the memory management for compartmentalizing it is better. Now, I'm sounding like a Google fanboy. I'm not. The point is, that's actually what's going on in the background. The fact that they're obviously enjoying the fact that it would shut down every ad blocker at one point. But the problem with this is virtually every ad blocker is coming out with a manifest version 3 to fix this. In fact, all of them are. And this is the other thing. People have already rewritten the Google Chrome install to where it lets you use version 1 and 2 anyway. They've already done that. There are versions of Google Chrome, again, other versions, other releases, other Chromium browsers that let you run very old plugins. I have a copy of Firefox that's been specially modified to where it'll run Netscape plugins in raw mode, meaning I have no security on the system, except it includes one more thing. It virtualizes the computer entirely. It isn't able to get a virus out. I can actively load malware in RAM and it can't get loose. It just crashes the browser. Because it supports version 0, we're going to call it Netscape, 0 versions, all the way up to the latest versions. That's it. Chrome, there is at least, I think, 2 versions of Chrome you can download that'll support old stuff that Chrome was never supposed to run because it virtualizes in the Chromium op system another op system so it can run Netscape plugins and shit. Some of you even are running these now. You know about it. Okay, now I've spent too much time doing this. But again, there's an actual technical reason for this. Processors are better. Version 2 manifest extensions aren't able to do certain things. They're sluggish and stupid. I use a web browser for a long time that had a plugin that was really awesome, but it was never updated after, I don't remember what year, but it was written to work on Netscape, literally, up. I mean, it didn't even give a version number. It just says it'll run on, like, Netscape 1. Okay? Obviously, eventually, since it was written to run on a 386 processor, maybe a Pentium, it might be a little slow because it can't take advantage of the other literally 75% of the bits the bandwidth had. I mean, it was literally a 16-bit setup. I'm on a 64-bit chip. Eventually, programs have to be updated, or they start literally not working, or they collapse on themselves, or they get so sluggish that they become a detriment instead of an asset. So how do we get around this? I'm going to bring up portable programs. Now, if you're not aware of this, every program on the planet, whether the programmers want to say it or not, are portable. What that means is, if I drag a copy of Notepad or Paint for Windows Vista onto Windows 7, all the way up to Windows 10, the operating system is supposed to just run it. It's a file. It's literally an executable. In the case of Paint, you can throw a couple other files next to it, which is kind of cool. They give it, guess what, plug-in capability to handle extra file formats. But the point is, it's just a program. It's an executable. That's how programs are written normally. Clumps of lots of programs with add-ons like web browsers also can be just thrown in a directory and run. If the programmers aren't entirely stupid, as long as they're not incompetent, it should determine by asking the operating system where it is on the hard drive. It'll be able to find all its subdirectories and figure everything out. Only an idiot would program it to refuse to do that. Oh yeah, Google Chrome will literally act like it doesn't know. I don't know how to work when it clearly does. Well, I have to be installed correctly. No, you fucking don't, Chrome. So someone figured out what the variables were and made it to where when you run Chrome, it runs a little program beforehand, virtualizing it in a compartmentalized way, to lie to it about it being installed. Oh yeah, you were installed 10 seconds ago. Here. And then when you're done, it then cleans up the variables in RAM and gets rid of anything it tried to put away somewhere else, keeping it stuck in its own directory, and it can run again, and you can move that directory anywhere you want to. That's called a portable app. This is the way programs were written originally, and have to be written if you're not aware of it, in the first place. Every program you see out there that says it has to be installed had to be written as a portable routine, or it wouldn't have fucking worked. No programmer is going to sit there and decide to make it based on it being perfectly installed. That's not how programs work. You have to write them as if they can't work correctly, that they're being thrown in a directory. Then you have to cripple them a little bit so that people have to install them. This is a conscious decision on their part. Good programmers don't fucking do that. Google doesn't let Google programmers be good. They don't hire good programmers, or if they hire them, they make them do bad things. Sorry. So yes, there's a version of Google Chrome that's portable. And right now, it's called DEV126 something something dark side online PAF.exe. What does that mean? Okay, imagine if you will, not only that someone would cripple the program to where you can't just extract it and run it, and then they would also cripple it so that it had to be integrated in your operating system when there's actually no need for it. I'm not kidding. There really is no need to do this bullshit. Let's say they wanted to take it one step further into the land of programming fuckery. They would write a downloader for it. At one time, downloading a program like Microsoft Office was a new thing, and they were huge files. So they would download it using an actual resumable downloader. This would talk back and forth to the server where a copy of the software was and prevent it from breaking the download. At one time, if you're not aware of it, we were using phone lines limited to 8,000 bytes a second or somewhere thereabouts. It's going to break a connection. I remember sitting down and downloading Linux for 3 days. I made a phone call for 3 fucking days to download a copy of Linux. It was 100 megs. And it was using heavy compression to get away with it, and it wasn't even a good phone line. The reason it was able to do it is the downloader would auto-resume and refill anything broken. If it found that the ass end of the file would download better, it would download those pieces. It would put them in a numbered set and then rebuild them on the drive. Those were necessary at one time. They're not anymore. But Google Chrome, as far as I can tell, has always used one of these little downloaders. If you're not aware of them, they're almost always 1.4 megabytes. That's the size of a floppy disk. You can't get it as one big 120 meg file like you're supposed to. So what you have to do is you have to use the downloader to get it as a big file. Don't let it install, and then use it to install into the drive. Or just don't use Google Chrome, which is my advice. I'm going to say that at the end. Yeah, that's like somebody telling you to install Linux when you're trying to solve a problem with your fucking Photoshop. But the point is, which by the way, people who do that are assholes. But seriously, this problem can be solved if you use, by default, not updating and not installable versions. A portable version with all the updates shut off will work. Or just use an alternative to Chrome, or just don't use any Chrome browsers. Anyway, I hope this has been useful, mostly for the history. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. You'll need